Now I'm speaking to the ones who had to grow up early, walk away, or survive without a net. Okay? And I will entitle this to the ones going it alone. This one is for the people who had to do life without a safety net, especially the younger ones out there right now. You got three jobs. You know who you are, okay? For the ones who don't have a mom to call or a dad to lean on, or a sibling who checks in every now and then, you know? For the ones who left home because staying would have broken them. For the ones who were pushed out, forgotten, ignored, or simply never understood. For the ones who had to become their own shelter. And if that's you, pull up a chair. You're not invisible here. You didn't fail. See? No, no. You adapted. I have a story about adaptation. You know, I used to work with the inmates, right? And the inmates in prison. I said, how do you live in a little box like this? They said, oh, you adapt. So one day my father visited me on my sailboat and he came in and he said, Joseph, he says, how do you live in a place like this? I said, Dad, you adapt. He said, oh, so now that's what life has come down to. You adapt. You adapt. Oh, he thought, he was found some way to criticize or to make fun of or mock. Not really all the time, but enough to say, hey man, I'm out of here, dude. So listen to me, you didn't fail, you adapted. You learned how to survive the storms other people never had to walk through. You learned how to read a room and how to sense danger and how to protect yourself and how to let me say it again, how to protect yourself. You got to work on that one. And how to keep going when nobody was clapping for you. Oh man, that's not weakness, that's intelligence. That's resilience. That's sovereignty in its earliest forms. Yeah. Your strengths, they were born in the dark. People who grew up without support, they develop strengths that can't be taught. You know how to work, you know how to endure, you know how to read people, man. You know how to pivot, and you know how to rebuild. How many times have you had to rebuild, right? People, especially people that move from here to there. You know how to keep going when the world is quiet. How many of you have been working on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and everybody's at home sleeping and, you're out there at 2 o'clock in the morning. These are not small things. These are muscles of someone who has lived the real life. But here's the part that you don't hear enough. Your strengths came from pain. And that means they deserve gentleness now. Gentleness now. Something you should consider for yourself and your worth to gentleness. Hey, listen, your weaknesses, they're not flaws. They're wounds sometimes. Let's talk about the other side of this, okay? Yeah. What does that look like? Maybe you struggle with trust. Maybe you shut down when people get too close. Hmm. Maybe you overwork, overgive, overthink. Hmm. Maybe you feel like you're always bracing for the next shoe to fall, for something to go wrong. You know, these aren't character defects; they're wounds. Yeah, and wounds, they don't make you unworthy. No, they make you human. Yeah, right. And you don't need to fix yourself to be lovable. You don't need to be perfect to deserve connection. Please remember that. You don't need to hide your scars. They're part of your story, man. You're allowed to build a life that doesn't look like anyone else's. That's a cool thing. It's a very cool thing. And when you grow up without support, right? I can see you over there. Yeah. You often feel like you're kind of behind. Oh, gee, everybody else, they all have this. What happened to me? Behind in relationships, behind in stability, behind in confidence, behind in knowing how to be an adult. But here's the truth, you're not behind. You're building from scratch, from the bottom up, from the footers. And people who build from scratch build differently. They build slowly. They build intentionally. They build with wisdom. They build with gratitude. They build with sovereignty. Your life doesn't have to look like anyone else's timeline. Your path is your own. And here's a way to look at it, okay? You're not alone, you're unaccompanied. There's a difference. Alone is a feeling of emptiness. Unaccompanied is a description of circumstance. You may be alone, but you're not empty. You may be unaccompanied. See? Yeah, you're not empty. Let's remember that. You have a mind. You have a heart. You have instincts. You have dignity. You have presence. You have a future. Trust me. You have a right to build a life that honors the person you have become or are becoming. So here's a little clarity for the road. Let me leave you with this. You're not broken because you had to walk alone, and you're not cursed because your family couldn't love you the way you needed. And you're not doomed because you had to start from nothing. You're a person who survived. You're a person who adapted. And you're a person who kept going. And now you get to become a person who thrives, not because someone rescues you, and not because someone finally shows up, but because you are learning to show up for yourself. And that is sovereignty.